All right, everybody, welcome to the webinar to shifting from web design to web development by optimizing and measuring your website's conversions. I'm Peter Van Rysdam, and I'm going to be presenting here along with Aaron Everhart, who is our web and social media marketing director. I've also got Amy here that's going to be answering your questions, so if you have any questions throughout, you have any technical difficulties or want us to clarify anything, there's a questions tab that you should see, and you'll be able to go ahead and click on that and ask Amy the question, and she'll pop in and let us know when there are questions that we can answer for you. We'll also be taking questions via Twitter with the hashtag 352webinar. That's #352webinar for those of you on Twitter, and then that's kind of a way we can also continue the conversation after the webinar is over and answer any of the questions that we weren't able to get to during the session. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here and talk about shifting from web design to web development and how to optimize and measure that. So today in this webinar, we'll cover the differences between design and development. They're words that are interchanged a lot and sometimes used wrong, but we'll go ahead and clarify what we mean by that and what the differences are. And then we'll talk about the components of development, including functionality, content management, usability, and how you can optimize those things on your own site. And then finally, one of the most important things, obviously, is to make sure that the optimization worked. And Aaron's going to talk a lot about different ways you can measure the results and some tools that are out there for you to use. So first, let's kind of go into what is a designer and what is a developer. Now, I've gone ahead and played into the stereotype here with these photos, but this is kind of how people think of designers and developers. Designers are also referred to as the graphic designers, the creative people, user interface designers, GUI designers, or graphical user interface. And the developers are thought of more as the programmers or software engineers. For example, at our company, we call the people that do the design designers, and the people that do the development side programmers. I know at Microsoft, for example, they call those people developers. So there's different terms that are thrown around, but just wanted to kind of clarify all those different terms so you understood who we were talking about here and how those things play together. They both play extremely important roles, though. The designer creates what the users see on the website, and the developer, for the most part, creates what makes the site work, what makes it effective, and what actually helps convert or drive your sales. The designers are focused on making something pretty and making something that looks good. You think a lot about print design and that kind of background. And the developers, on the other hand, are focused on making something that's usable. So you obviously need some merging of those two things so that something is pretty and works. Designers are using things like Photoshop and HTML, even CSS, where programmers or developers are using ASP.NET, PHP, different languages that are out there. Even things like Flash and Silverlight gets into development with ActionScript and XAML coding and things like that. But kind of the important thing to note is that not all web designers know about web development, but web developers understand the importance of both. So that's a really key point to consider. Designers are kind of looking at looking at their part, whereas developers are looking at their part and the design and how those things play together. You can almost think of it as an architect and then a general contractor, where the designer is the architect and they're planning it out, and then the contractor or the developer is the one that's actually putting it together. So they need to understand the plans, understand how it's all going to work together, but also understand how to actually put it together. So that's where we kind of get into that shift. Here's kind of a visual representation of what I'm talking about with web design and web development, where design is really a part of web development, and it's just one part. There's a lot of different things that go into it that are outside of web design, like the content, how it's laid out, how it's managed after the fact, and also the functionality of the site and how different things work and how, if it's an e-commerce site, how you're purchasing things or how you're interacting with other users, if it's a networking site. And this all really comes back to the main principle of usability, and that's what I want to talk a little bit more about here. So usability is something that really just refers to how people interact with your site and how you can optimize that experience, because we really want to optimize the conversions here in this conversation and get people from just being casual lookers on your website to being customers or registrants or whatever that specific goal is on your site. And we've done some webinars in the past about usability, and you can see those on our blog, but I'm going to just touch on a couple of those high points before we get into how we're actually monitoring those things after the fact. So the first big thing with usability in this conversation is calls to action. So the call to action is obviously what you're looking for someone to do on your website. For example, on our site, we're looking for people to request more information about our services so we can contact them. On an e-commerce site, they're looking for people to purchase a product or add things to their cart. Other sites might be looking for you to join their newsletter, or Twitter's looking for you to sign up for an account. So there's a lot of different types of call to action, but there's some overriding principles that can work for all of them. So one of the things that is a great way to look at usability, and specifically the call to action, is the concept of red routes. And there's a URL on the bottom there that if you can't read it, we'll go ahead and put it in the blog post afterwards as well. But there's a great article that talks about what red routes are. So to put it in context, basically in London there are a lot of different bus routes throughout the city. They found that there are some key bus routes that most people use, and that these are the most popular ones, and they're also the ones that are backed up a lot, obviously, because of that. So what London instituted is a policy called red routes, where you can see in that picture there's a double red line on the side of the road. And in that lane next to that red route, you're not allowed to park, obviously, but you're also not allowed to stop, not allowed to drive in that lane, or basically anything that disrupts that bus getting from point A to point B very quickly. So by optimizing the red routes, they went ahead and improved the speed of those routes and the efficiency of the transit on the most popular routes where people wanted to go. And the same thing holds true for your website. You have areas where you want them to go, specifically on your home page. When someone comes to the site, you want them to go to the product catalog, or you want them to go to the registration page. But you also want to tell them some other stuff about your company, who you are, where you started, all the reasons why they should do that. But you want to make sure that you basically provide a red route to the end goal. So if it's an e-commerce site, again, the red route is to get them to the product catalog. But then even from that point, it's to get them to the next step of adding it to their cart. If they can't find the cart button, obviously that's an issue. So finding and optimizing the red route is extremely important. So I'll show a couple examples here. This is a site called Adams. It's a site search tool, and it's not the prettiest design in the world, but looking at it from the home page, it's pretty clear what they want you to do. They want you to get started, and that's really where they're focusing you. There's other information here that talks about why you should get started. There's privacy statements in terms of use. There's login for existing customers, and I'm sure the sign up is actually probably the same thing as the get started. But they're really focusing you in on that one spot. So if you've never been to the site before, you know where you need to go to complete the process. And if you've been to the site before, then you already know where to go, and you just go ahead and log in. So so that's a good example of red routes. This site, you might have heard of this company called Apple with the iPad, the iPad 2 here specifically. And this is a good example of the red route too. Again, they provide all the information about the product here and the links to get to the different products and the different features on the iPad 2 specifically. But they also have that Buy Now button up there to point you in that direction. And so it's interesting to note what makes it a red route. Well, it's in an easy place to find. It's up in a corner. It's not hidden. So the positioning is key. There's also the contrast. It's the only button there that has a blue bubble around it, and so it makes it stand out from everything else on the site. It's really the only thing in that color, or any color for that matter, on Apple's site. And the verbiage as well. It's clear that it's buy now. It's not some industry jargon or other term that might be confusing. It's right to the point. This is what we want you to do. We want you to go ahead and buy now. I'll show you a couple of other examples. Well, as I mentioned, the Atoms one is actually a great example of that as well in terms of the contrast with the Get Started. It's the same color as the logo, but it's pretty clear that it's a different thing, and that's obviously where the eye goes right away. The only other competing color really is the green on the side for why you should add it to your site. So that's important as well. You can also use things like photography to really accent the call to action. We've done this here with the hands. It's Helping Hands charity, so the hands play in already there, but they're really leading the eye to the donate button, which obviously again stands out, has a different color contrast there. It's larger. Scale is a big thing as well. I mean, you don't want to have an enormous flashing button on your screen that's going to take away aesthetically from your site, but you want to have something that does draw the eye in and stand out. This is an example of Overkill to action. This is a site that I believe provides insurance in the UK, and so they're doing a lot of things wrong here. So specifically, they want you to sign up for a quote. Took me a while to figure that out, but I did. And you can see they've got a lot of different spots to do it, which is good. But the problem is, as I was clicking through this and putting the presentation together, a lot of these actually go to different places. There's the personal injury quote, there's the home insurance quote, and it would make much more sense to just draw people to a quote form and then have them self-select where they need to go from there, as opposed to having them make the decision just based on the clip art pictures of where they should go. And then you've got retrieve a quote up here. Another issue, though, is you've got some competing things. For example, is the red what's supposed to draw the eye? Would you rather the person get more info or go ahead and get a quote? You'd obviously rather they get a quote. So we've got something that's orange here to get a quote, yet that's competing with the orange on this side. It's also competing with the orange in this banner over here, and even down here with something for Sizzler, which I imagine is different in the UK than it is here. But and I've got to say, just completely unrelated note, I'm completely confused by the header and how I'm supposed to read that sentence. But that's another issue. So this is a great example of an overkill call to action, and how you can really put too much out there in trying to get all the information in one place, and it ends up with you not getting the message across at all. The next thing I want to talk about are forms. A lot of times, for a lot of different companies, the form is the call to action. With our company, we're looking for people to request more information from us, and so we want them to fill out a form. With Twitter, they want you to fill out a form to create an account. So really, most sites, except for e-commerce sites, are looking for you to fill out a form. So what they've done on this site, Convor, is they've actually, rather than have a call to action that's sign up now that takes you to another page, they just said, let's go ahead and put the form right there on the front page and have the call to action be right there, and the actual action take place on that site. And so that's a really interesting way to do it. But you can see, obviously, they have a pretty short form, and that's something you got to consider. You look at Facebook, for example; they do the same thing right there on their homepage. If you're not logged in and if you don't have an account, the sign up is right there on the homepage, and you've got the contrast with the green button standing out from the rest of the site. But it's important to note with forms, a lot of people ask for way too much information. You really need to think about whether or not you need the fax number. I don't know the last time I used our fax number, but I know for a while it used to be on our form. And it's just because that's how forms were, and these are the questions that everyone asks. But you really need to go back and look at it and say, what information do I need to know, and what information can I get later possibly from my customers? Obviously, Facebook asks this little bit of information, but once you've signed up, then you tell them pretty much everything about yourself down to the things you like. So you can ask some of these things later, but what do you need to know now, and what can you limit it to so you're not stopping people from completing that? Because that's the big thing. If you've got a form on this page that was 50 fields long, a lot of people are going to just click away and say, I don't have time for that. but you look at this and you say, okay, there's just a handful of things in a drop-down or two, then that's pretty easy. I can go ahead and do that. This is another good example. So sometimes you need to ask a little bit more than Facebook does. For example, when someone's purchasing a service, this is an online time tracking service called 14 Days. And so they do a really good job with the breadcrumbs on the top of setting expectations. So I'm sure you've been in forums before where you've clicked next and next and next and next, and it keeps going from page to page as you're filling out more information, and the form ends up being a lot longer than you anticipated. Well, that's fine to have a page or have a form that spans many pages, but it's great when you set an expectation for what that is. So here you can see we've got step 1, step 2, step 3. So I'm on step 2, but I already know I only have one more step after this, and I can clearly see what the information is. They've also done a good job of breaking it out here with the numbers and the graphical representation here, so you can easily differentiate between the different fields and good explanations of what these fields are about. So they could have done all this on one page. It would have been a pretty daunting form, though, at that point. So by putting it on multiple pages and setting a clear guide as to where you are, it helps out tremendously. I should also point out, though, when I was looking at this site, that the call to action at the beginning is not that great. There was actually an article on Mashable.com, which is a social media and marketing blog, a couple of weeks ago about good forms and what makes a good form. And 14 Days was an example there, and that's why I used it. However, when I went to the 14 Days page, I had a real difficult time finding the form, which is the call to action for them to get you to sign up for a trial or sign up for an account. And there's actually a whole long page here, and only at the bottom did I actually find that form. Now, later found out if you clicked on the pricing tab on the top, that brought you to a similar page that you could access the form from more easily. But you know, that's pretty complicated and not a great thing. So they have a great form, but they've missed the boat on the actual call to action. There we go. Another thing to consider with your form is inline validation. So I'm sure that you've all filled out a form before, gotten to the end and clicked submit and found out that you entered your email address wrong or something like that. And so what happens is the entire form is empty again, and you have to go back and put in all that information. And that's a huge hassle, and a lot of times you're going to have people leave the form at that point. So with inline validation, what you can do is right away, for example here, I put in something that was not an email address and tabbed to the next field, which is password, and immediately, before I even hit sign up, it said, wait, please enter a valid email address. And so I know right away where my problem is and what I did wrong. And so also, while you're doing this, you need to consider some things like not just, is this field required? Does information need to be in here? But how is this information, how does it need to be formatted? Another problem that you see a lot on forums is when you put your phone number in the wrong format. Well, it might not be the wrong format to you, but it's the wrong format to their specific database setup. And so when you're creating a form, you should allow for some variation there. Not everyone uses dashes or parentheses around the area code, and to require someone to put something into a format that's different than what you're used to, you shouldn't necessarily do that, which could cause them to, again, have an error pop up and maybe leave the form. So that is my section on optimizing your site in terms of driving people to those conversions, and hopefully some of those things can help you increase the conversions on your website. But in order to find out if that's actually happening, you really need to measure it. And that's where Aaron comes in, who I mentioned is our web and social media marketing director, and handles this for a lot of our clients and can talk a lot about managing your site's conversions. So I'll turn it over to Aaron.
All right, thanks, Peter. So as he was saying, you can do a lot with actually making sure that your call to actions and your forms are adequately optimized, but what good is all of that data, and what good is putting all this information out there if you're not going to be able to track how your users are seeing it? You want to make sure that you know how they're navigating your site, how they're actually finding your form, what they're doing when they get to your form, and if they're finding your call to action. And luckily, there is already a free tool that I'm sure most of you already know about, and I hope that it's already installed on your website to measure all of these analytics, and that's going to be Google Analytics. So with Google Analytics, you're going to be able to really keep around and make sure that your users are finding your site the way that they want to be found. The biggest help in Google Analytics when you're looking at how well your forms are doing or how well your call to actions are doing is going to be looking at the content detail of each of those pages. So what you're looking at right now is the content detail of our conversion rate, and that's going to be our request proposal page. So here you're able to see how many unique page views are actually coming there, the average time that they're spending on this page, how many people are leaving this page without actually going on, how many people are leaving this page completely and then leaving our site. You're also able to see how much is this page actually worth to us. I mean, you know, with here, you're able to look and see that we're getting 531 page views on our request proposal page. 434 of those are going to be the unique views. This is the first time that they're actually coming to our site. Later on, you're going to be able to see, you know, we have set up another page, that a request proposal thank you page, which is the thank you page that pops up after someone submits the form. So here you're going to be able to tell how many people are viewing this page compared to how many people were on the form before. So, you know, you're able to monitor to see, okay, who's coming to our form, but who's not filling it out, and what exactly is the problem there. You're also going to be able to view in your content area in Google Analytics the navigation summary and the entrance paths of your website. Now this is actually going to show you where people are actually going when they get to your site. Personally, I found entrance paths to be a more readable tool than navigation summary. For here, you're looking at our entrance path when you're landing on our home page. So we can tell that when someone is on our home page, 24% of them are going to our services page, and then after their services, the next page is going to be your contact us page, and that's going to be 16%. Here you're really able to see where exactly people are navigating. This is really going to help you from a placement for your call to action and a placement of your form. You want to make sure that it's not going to be varied throughout your site and that there are going to be an easy way to find out. You also want to know what's the most popular route that people are taking on your website. For us, we're measuring forms and conversions in 3 different areas. We have a contact us page which lists all of our phone numbers and our different addresses, and we also have our request proposal page. So we want to make sure when we're looking at measuring our conversions that we are factoring in that there are 2 different ways that people can actually contact us and access our request proposal page. Okay, so next, it's also important to know that it's not just measuring how people are filling out your forms and what they're actually doing on your website. Conversions to you can mean many, many different things. Right now you're looking at the analytics of one of our clients who had a couple of media buys placed on different websites, and they were interested in coming to us to see how effective these media buys are going to be for them. Are people clicking on their site? How people are navigating whenever they get to that site? Essentially, is it worth their money? For here, you're able to see the overall analytics of those contact or those media placement buys compared to their referral traffic and all of their visits total. Referral traffic is meaning to any other third-party website that people are finding your site. So if you have a link on Mashable, for instance, you know, that's going to be considered a referral traffic. Facebook, Twitter, those are all going to be referral traffic. Google is going to be organic keywords, so that's not necessarily considered in the referral traffic area. Whereas all visits are going to be, you know, every way that people are coming to find your site. So looking at here, what's marked out in black, those are the actual referring websites from their media buys. You can see that 17 people from the period June 10th through July 10th are coming based off of those 2 media buys that they have. Now that's compared to 776 people coming from all of their referral traffic. You're also able to see, again, the page views that people are doing when they're coming from these areas, pages per visit, the bounce rate, which is how often people are leaving the site without continuing on to another page, average time on their site, and the % of those new visits. It was really interesting looking at their analytics and after a couple of months of the media buys being in place to see that these campaigns actually weren't being effective for our client at all. And they've actually since taken them down because they're realizing that they're spending too much money on this. by looking at their Google Analytics and knowing what information that they need to look for, they're really able to see and measure the effectiveness of their overall campaigns. All right, so this is all great information, and you're really going to be able to see how people are navigating your site, but you want to know actually what are people doing when they're converting? How do I track that in Google Analytics? And in there, they have a tool where you can set up goals. And with goals, you're able to track to see exactly how people are converting on your website. You can pick a conversion that's going to be either a URL or a destination. It can be the time spent on your site. It can also be, how many pages per visit they're going to be doing. So when you're getting your Google Analytics, this is a typical form that you're going to see when you're setting up a goal. Put a goal name. It's going to be something that's going to be easily recognizable for you. For 352, we actually have 2 goals that are being measured in Google Analytics. We want to have a goal when people are coming to our request proposal page, and also when people are coming to the request proposal thank you page. So this is letting us know how many people are, again, coming to our form, how many people are actually filling it out and submitting that proposal form. With your goal type, again, you can measure URL, time on site, or pages per visit. I think most of you will probably be using the URL destination, and that's going to be that thank you page that comes up after someone submits the form or after they click on your call to action. When you are measuring your URL or destination, there's likely going to be a funnel that people take to get there. This is the path that they take to get to that main navigation. For us, they want to do the request proposal and then the actual submitted form. Now, what you're looking at right now is a free Google Analytics app, and it's PattyTrack, and that's pattytrack.com is the website. And this allows you to set up these different funnels in a very easy and very graphical way. Google Analytics is great, and I don't know where I would be without it, because it really tells you a lot about how people are navigating your website and if it's being effective and if it's actually working. But there's a lot of data in Google Analytics, and there's a lot of information that can get buried, and that's typically hard to find. So it's not the most user-friendly analytical system. With PattyTrack, we are able to easily see exactly what people are doing when they get to our site. So you can tell from this last month period, we had a 28% conversion rate. 28% of people were coming to our request proposal, or 28% of people were coming to our request proposal and actually filling out that form and submitting it. You don't have to add anything on your website to use PattyTrack, so it's very, very easy to use. All you need to do is enter your Google Analytics account information, and it's going to pull that data for you.
And so this actually showed us, obviously we get a lot of people, doing some window shopping, and they want to see what they're going to be asked on the form, and they make that decision at that point of whether or not they're going to fill it out. So getting someone to the form is extremely important, but then making sure we convert that person is even more important. And so we're actually in the process right now of redoing our form based on these numbers, because that's lower than we'd like it to be. So we're using this for our own site, obviously, to go back and improve that process so we can get that number up, so that hopefully 100% of people that come to the form will go ahead and fill it out. So when you do a form, it's extremely important, like Aaron said, to not just see how many people get to that, but to see how many people complete it. Originally, when our site was designed, we had the proposal request form as a modal pop-up on the website, and when someone would fill it out, there wasn't necessarily a second page. So we added that thank you page so that we had a URL to track here through the goals. So when developing your site, it's really important to consider that. So you can look at that 439 number and say, oh, that's great, we had 439 people fill out our form. But then obviously you're looking at what came in, and it's maybe not there. So this is a great number to look at, and a great way to compare those two things.
That also, it's a great segment into our next little topic, and that's A/B testing. And with A/B testing, you're able to test the different variations of your website. You can test, okay, is the header graphic exactly where it should be, or maybe we should put more images in there. Maybe we should move the content area up further. Do we need to move it below the fold? With A/B testing, you're able to test complete new layouts, types of content, placement of your call to action, images, photography, really anything that you put on your website. You're able to see how it's actually performing and if there's an alternative for it. Now, with A/B testing, Google will randomly serve up the different variations of your website to different users. So they're not going to know that this page is definitely your home page or it's an alternative home page. They're just going to be able to see that, oh, okay, this looks like your actual home page. Within A/B testing, it's also going to show you, pulling from your Google Analytics, how your pages are doing. We did some A/B testing recently where we were testing the performance of our homepage video. Now we were testing the original, where the original is when the video automatically starts playing with sound. We also were testing the muted video. Now this is where the video started playing, but there was no sound coming out, and people had to make that action and do that click within the sound. We were also testing a static image, to where people are coming to our homepage. They're not seeing a video. They're just seeing a static image that says 352 Media Group, Web Development, Digital Marketing. Click to play the movie. So those were our 3 different variations in our A/B testing. And with this, we actually found that the original and the muted video page were far outperforming our static homepage. This was letting us know that the video, we're keeping people on our website. This was the entrance point to them. This was how we're making sure that we're attracting people and getting them there. With our static image page, people just weren't staying on there. We didn't give that call to action, and we didn't give them something to stay on for. From this testing, we're also able to we're going to set up some other testing for it, where we're really going to just compare the original page and the muted video page one-on-one instead of having these multiple variations in it.
Yeah, this is actually kind of an ABC test, but what you were looking at here, when you look at the far right, the conversions to visitors, what we were measuring this against is how many people are actually going all through the site then after that time and filling out the form. But there are a lot of other things you can look at in terms of judging the performance with the A/B testing, and those things are all available as well on different reports. So as Aaron was saying, people are staying longer on the site. People might click to more pages. Actually, we found with the video, it seemed like people were clicking through to less pages, and we kind of attributed that back to people basically understanding more about us by listening to the video than having to go to the About Us page or other pages like that. So people actually stayed on the site longer with less pages and then converted more, which was a good thing. And one other thing to mention on A/B testing while we're on that topic, it's really important when you do the A/B testing, if you want to get good conclusive results, to make sure that you just change one thing on the site. So you don't want to take site A with the video and the text as it is versus site B with no video and completely different text and completely different colors and that kind of thing, because at the end of that, you're not sure what made the one page perform better or worse. So on this example, the only thing we changed is the video and how it played. And so we're able to look at that and know that there were no other factors that influenced it. If we want to check a different color or a different call to action, we would do that in a different campaign so we can have good information around that.
We also saw through some old A/B testing that we did that more people were clicking when our request proposal button said actually request a free consultation. Before we had this on there, we had the typical request proposal. We found that more people were clicking with request a free consultation because the wording sounded much better, and we've since switched that over into our entire website. Okay, so there's also some really great tools that you can use in addition to your Google Analytics to see what people are doing if they're not actually clicking on your site. And these are going to be click tracking tools. The main one that we use is clicktail.com. And here you're able to record entire sessions of websites and essentially play them back for you to see. What you're looking at is a clicktail report from one of our clients, to where this is the activity of people mousing over your website. So here you're able to see in the dark gray areas, this is where the most of the time that their mouse moves, followed by the light yellow and then to the green and to the purple. This is allowing you to really tell not only where are people clicking on your website, but where is the attention going? Where are people really looking to? Here we're able to see that the biggest areas for their call to actions are going to be right up there at the top areas where those dark red are. That's instinctively where their mouse is going, and that's where you want to make sure that their call to areas are right there. Your call to actions are right there. Now, it was actually interesting with this client, most of the most of their call to actions were going to be at the very bottom of the page, and that wasn't actually very successful for them. So this is something that we want to look at for further redesigns and see, okay, most people are going to these two areas of your website. These are going to be distinctively the places that you want to go to put your call to actions to really increase people to perform with your website. Now with ClickTail, you're able to measure the mouse over, and that's the report you're looking at now, essentially where they're moving their mouse. You're able to measure their mouse clicks. Where exactly are they clicking? You're able to measure their attention, actually. Where is the eye getting drawn to? And you're able to see their scroll reach. How far are people scrolling until they're getting tired and moving on? Typically, you want to make sure that your most important information is going to be above the fold of your website. And you're really not going to need to scroll down very much to get the most important, the actions that you're looking for. With this client, if you scroll down into it, which was just a screenshot, but if you scroll down, you'll tell that below the page, it was all purple. There was just no activity whatsoever because most people were interacting with the top thing. Now, there are a couple other additional analytics and click tracking tools that you can use. Certainly, Google Analytics is probably one of the easiest ones to use. It's free also, which is a very big drive. Certainly, if you're working on a limited budget and you don't have the necessary resources to go out and get these advanced tools, Google Analytics is great. But again, as I was mentioning earlier, it's a little difficult to read. It's very, very cumbersome almost to kind of learn exactly which information you want to look at and what's going to be important to you. So if you do have the resources and you do have the budget, there are a couple of other analytics and click tracking tools to use, and these are Kissmetrics, Mixpanel, Performable, and clickmeter.com. Most of them offer free trials if you want to see exactly if they're even worth signing up for their monthly plans to use it, and you're able to really tell all of the different data. From these, most of them will give you similar information that Google Analytics will do, but again, it's just going to be a little bit easier for you to read, and it's going to be a little user-friendly. So that was everything that I had about measuring your conversions and your call to actions. If you have any additional questions, please contact us, and you can write in your questions box. Peter, do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, well, one of the things actually on the heat maps you were showing, it's important to know that obviously, where the mouse goes is an important thing to look at. Obviously, the clicks is what's extremely important. Your alternative is eye tracking software, which I've actually done some demos of before at different trade shows, and it's amazing, and it tells you great information, but it's also tens of thousands of dollars. Where the software that we're showing here, the examples are much less expensive. They're small monthly fees. There's even some free ones, as Aaron was saying. So you got to take the information with a grain of salt. Obviously, that it's not as good as the eye tracking, but really the important thing is where the user is clicking. And actually, if I go back to the heat map, you can see the percentages in these spots are showing that's the percentage of people that clicked on that spot, so 3.8% versus 0.3% or 5.1% over here. So that's a good indication of what the most effective thing is in addition to just the heat map.
We actually had a question from Tim, and it was, how do you drive traffic to social media pages, manually, automated? Now with this, Tim, I think that you're talking, how are we actually going to make sure that people are coming to our Facebook and coming to our Twitter? With that, the number one way that people tend to forget that they're on Facebook, or if they're not going to someone's Facebook page, is just because they don't know about them. Most of the time you're able to really leverage the resources that you already have. You're able to put your Facebook icons and your Twitter icons above the fold in a prominent location to where you're making sure that people know that you're there. And if people know that you're on Facebook and they know that you're on Twitter, then that's just the number one way that they're going to make sure that they can interact with you. Another great way is making sure that your handles are going to be at the end of your email signatures, not just your marketers, everyone in the company. Certainly you want to make sure that social media is not a one-person job, and it's not just the marketing department's job. A successful social media campaign is really making sure you have everybody within your company, being brand ambassadors for what you're doing. And now, as you can even see here, we want to make sure that we're promoting our social media handlers. We're letting you know that you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on Twitter, and you can find us at our blog. And again, that's just making sure that people know that you're there is another great way. Tim, if that didn't answer your question, if you want to write in the contact section, we can make sure again. Peter, do you have anything else to add to that?
Well, I like the plug there. But also when you're actually on the site, there's a lot of questions now about how you integrate Facebook, Twitter, and the other services with your site itself. And so, a lot of people just have the link off to Facebook and Twitter. And I don't know if that's the best idea, because then you're getting the person to the site, which was your goal all along, so they will go ahead and go to that call to action and become a customer, and then you're telling them here's somewhere else to go with great content. So there's a lot of tools out there, and Facebook and Twitter have their own as well, where you can pull that content into your website. And so that's a great option to bring that content over to your site so that someone doesn't have to go somewhere else to get it. On the flip side, too, with custom Facebook pages and tabs, you can actually take the call to action and take the content from your website and bring it over to Facebook, which is a great thing to do. When you consider people that are on Facebook and they stumble across your fan page, they want to be on Facebook. They chose to go there, and so if you're asking them to leave Facebook and come to your website, that's a much bigger request than asking them to just click a registration button or click like or something on the Facebook page. So that's something to also consider. Is it works both ways. So you want to bring the information to where the person already is. All right, I think that's all the questions that we have right now. If there's any other questions, you can get them in here in the last couple seconds. Otherwise, you can go ahead and still ask those on Twitter, and we'll answer those there as well. We're going to be putting a video recap of this session on our blog in case you missed anything. You can go back and watch it again, and or show it to your kids or whatever you want to do. Our blog is rantingandraving.com, and that's where you can find this. And we'll also send an email out to the participants, letting you guys know where that's up, when that is up. So thank you all very much for joining us today. And on behalf of Aaron and Amy, thanks and have a great day.